Sort of the hang of it. It goes quicker. And I hate to tell you, small plates go quicker. I have some etchings at home. In fact, I think I have my plate here. I might bring it in. It's about as big as this cardboard. That's
Wow.
a large copper plate. So,
What, $400?
wasn't that much by now standards now with China and India wiring up their country in multiple wars.
It's like $5 a pound copper.
Yeah. And so I don't have it here. Definitely don't. Move it down. Yeah. All right. So, by the way, printers who publish their works will often do what's called a strike-through when they're done with their edition. They would actually put a big X through the image, or they might put a small X somewhere. So sometimes you'll go to a gallery, and there might be a Picasso or a Rembrandt, and you're like, why did they put a big X through their plate? That tells you it's definitely printed after the artist died, and it's not to be misconstrued as something that the artist actually printed in his or her lifetime. The strike through would just be to ruin the plate so that no one can then make money on your plate. Because think about it. You don't know if I told you, I had students sell their entire edition of solar plates like a couple quarters ago. So you might take off after this class and make tons of prints and they start selling for money. And if your edition is 20 prints and I have 1 of 20 and you have 10 of 20 and you have 20 of 20, they're all worth about the same. Now all of a sudden, if someone finds the plate and does 100 more, that kind of pushes the value of our print down. So, all right, so we've got this plate ready to go.
Professor Mr. Brainwash.
As in Banksy?
Well, yeah, except he's not Banksy. Mr. Brainwash is someone separate.
Oh, okay. We think. Or is
No,
that for
it's
sure?
pretty clear.
Okay.
They're different heights.
Oh, really? All right, so
Unless
we
one
know
of them
not to
has-
put our hands near the press, right? Okay.
Are you asking for a question, Randy?
Yeah.
After we have printed or approved, do we clean the plate before re-inking or working it again?
Yes, soap and water.
Soap and water, okay.
Soap and water. If you were going to print a second print, you just redo that whole process.
If I'm gonna work it some more,
Yeah.
clean it first and then move on.
Yep.
Can you get ghosts from these? I can't ever remember that about etching.
Sometimes. Okay, but this is intentionally too dark. I would never do this. That's too dark. But I wanted it. Like it's just like 3 tones, like a white, a really dark gray, and maybe a black. So what you need to do is you need to scrape and burnish your plate. And I know, but I'm not even going to clean it because you're all very patient and I want to be mindful of your time. But for instance, like maybe I want some light in this foreground so the shadows really pop out. You take the knife, the triple-sided scraper, you put tape around it. There's not all of them have tape. You don't need to, but just be really aware these are sharp. And you just, with the blade part, drag it across. And because we've made that plate, instead of being smooth, it's like sandy, the scraper is actually taking all those little mountains of zinc off and smoothing it out. And you can right away tell it's doing something because it's actually making it shinier. Now it still has a texture. It's not going to be bright white, but depending on how deep your aquatint is, you can scrape or you can come in with the scalloped part of your needle and burnish. And so, like right now, I know I want the horn to just be gleaming white. So I might even take some silicone or some of that little gun oil and put it on there so it's got a little lubrication. But if you just push in small circles, and I'm using a fair amount of pressure, and be very mindful that it's a bigger tool than maybe some of the areas you want to burnish, just being very careful. You can see that the horn now is even shinier than the rest of the horn. So that's going to wipe even cleaner. And I'm not going to make you watch me pull another proof, but I'm going to work on this, and then you can see it. We'll compare this and this. But what's nice about that is it's going to give you different textures. So this all has, like if this were one of your prints that you were turning in, some of my feedback to you might be, well, there's not enough texture. It's all just sort of 3 tones and maybe some of those little spots on the rhino are kind of a texture. But maybe there needs to be some more texture. Whereas like this one's got like sanded areas and, you know, coarse areas and the roulette. And that reminds me, one last thing, you don't always then have to use the acids again. You can roulette on this, you can dry point on this. So for instance, all this shadow underneath my figure was all dry pointed. And the little fine lines in the hair were just lightly dry pointed with the needles. Barely any pressure, and that's enough that it'll hold a little tiny bit of ink. And so we want to try these things out. Questions?
Do you remember how many times you etched that? How many times it went in the bath? And
This one?
yes.
3 times. Line work and at least 3 aquatints, of which I did some spit biting, which I haven't told you about yet.
Oh, okay.
Do you want to know what's spit biting?
What is spit biting?
Spit biting. Traditionally, it's where you would actually use your spit and put acid in it, and then paint with your spit. And your spit actually has and it has some adhesion to it, so it wouldn't just roll off your plate. It would kind of hold in the spot. But now what you can do is don't spit, but if you take a clean brush, you can go over and just grab some of the acid and paint with it and kind of pool it in spots, and that will do a little bit of a bite. It won't do anything as sophisticated as this, but like if you wanted like a camouflage pattern, like you're doing a soldier and you want camouflage, that might be a cool way to do it. Aquatint your plate and then paint or put little drops on, like let it sit for 30 seconds, rinse it off, add more drops for a minute, and so it's the same sort of thing. You're increasing your edge, so on and so forth.
Where did you do it on that one?
Where did I do it on that one? You had to ask me that because it didn't work.
Because I knew you
The
forgot.
rhinoceros
Oh, it just didn't
drool.
work.
The
okay.
it didn't work, and the reason why is because one of the reasons that I did this print over the summer at a non-toxic shop was to do research to bring back here. We changed the chemistry, we added more salt. For instance, when we look at, this is an old swatch, I would say that's not black, right? And that's at
Yeah.
10 minutes. When I print this and show it to you later, the black is going to be really, really black at both 10 and 12 minutes. So just the addition of sodium speeds up the edge time dramatically, and it bites better, and it keeps a lot of the copper suspended so we don't get a lot of that brown slime all over our plates. All right, if there aren't any other questions,
I have a question.
yes.
Can you not make a print